Blakey and Tux, they're talking Cardiff City and some other stuff. Blakey and Tux, Dolly asks the questions on Blakey's boot room. Will always be blue.
Good afternoon, welcome to Blakey's Boot Room here on Wales Online. As always, Nathan Blake and Steve Tucker in the studio. Before we start, well, I think an apology might be in order, first of all, for our lateness, but you're used to that by now, to be fair.
We'd apologise if we were on time. Sorry for those who missed the first 10 minutes, we were on time.
No show last week, and it wasn't our fault for once, Tux. It was this man's fault. And
this guy was
the new, what's the job title? Non-executive director, to start with, Newport County.
That's right, yeah.
Congratulations, we've had emails all week. Does this mean the end of the boot room? People are getting worried yet?
Well,
people are getting hopeful. Please, does this mean the end of the boot room? Fingers crossed.
Tell us what you can about your new role, quickly.
Well, it's just an advisory role, helping out where I can, different areas. Obviously, you look at governance and stuff like that at the club. They're trying to get a training facility together and stuff like that. So it's lots of areas, to be honest with you. And I couldn't really specify, well, it's just to do with that. It's a bit of all over, helping restructuring and what have you.
And he's forgotten about the £10 million he's
You owe me.
investing as well. No, that he's investing.
I was going to say, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Man,
See me after the show.
I owe you my whole career, man. How can I ever pay you back?
I know that.
And a terrible one it is.
You still got the picture on the wall and
people,
all.
Yeah. Farrah Fawcett Majors on one wall, Nathan Blake on the other. No wonder I was a confused teenager. I didn't know where I was. But people have been worrying that this could be the end of the boot room, so we want to put that to bed now. Don't we?
Well, I think,
Don't we?
Yeah. Well, look, it's just an advisory capacity
Yeah.
at this point, so up until the end of this season, I can only say that, I mean, Blake's Boot Room can continue.
Without Blakey?
Yeah, well, it's the name is synonymous with the
Tucker's
online now and everything, and it just won't be the same.
It won't be.
You can lead it.
So Tucker's Boot Room. I can see it now.
I'll still come back and guess now and then.
Well,
Talk about Newport and see where Cardiff are.
Well, before the Newport.
I'm still going to be watching, Newport, Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham, as we do at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Those are the four teams you've got to keep up to speed with no matter what. Do you know what I mean?
So you'll be able to come in ahead of the
commitments.
Newport derby in League One next season?
Wouldn't that be great?
No, it wouldn't be great.
I mean,
it would be terrible.
For Welsh football, it'd be great. For the two sets of fans.
I'm glad you got that on there. Remember, this is still a Cardiff City show. It would be terrible.
Listen, Cardiff aren't going down. That's
no.
Well, let's talk Cardiff.
Let's talk football.
Defeat on the weekend after a bit of an unbeaten run. All right, lots of draws in there. Improvements in the last few weeks, but poor on the weekend.
Yeah, well, they weren't poor. Obviously, Witts' sending off was important. One thing I didn't get was the lad, the left back. His name escapes me now, but he basically was on a booking.
Before Witts.
Went through one of the players, and I thought, oh, he's off. And nothing. So I thought, oh, okay, nice to see that. Leniency from a referee, keeping 11 men on the pitch and all that. 2 minutes later, Witts does the exact same thing, red card.
Yeah, I
was like, confused.com.
Witts' second look was a lot. It looked worse.
Do you know what? It was, but you have to understand, and this is what gets me about the referees at the moment. They're up for a lot of stick, and rightly so, in my opinion, because, listen, we all say they do a fantastic job, but there's been so many bad mistakes. And what I'm saying is, if you understand the game, you realise that Witts was committed before the lad was committed to that challenge. And okay, you can say, well, it's a stupid challenge to make being on a yellow card. But you know that split second in the game when you decide I'm going to go for it, and okay, Peter's getting a bit of stick for not being as committed in the challenge. So if he's gone for it, he's committed to the challenge, and the boy is just, you know, put the engine burners on and just got ahead of him.
It's one of those ones that looks a lot worse than actually
it was a lot
is.
worse.
I agree, but it was always going to be a red.
I mean, but my point is, you've got to show the other lad the yellow. You know, foul. Okay, they give yellow cards for looking at someone the wrong way these days, but you know, it was still a foul. It was still a bookable offence. You know, so that was the only disappointing thing with it. But Cardiff, in general, they are looking better. It wasn't. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't great for 20 minutes. Very even game. 25 minutes until Wolves scored. Once Wolves scored, Cardiff seemed to revert the type. You know, midfield just chipping balls up, trying to chip them up to Kenwyn. You know, what they need to do is get the wingers off the line, get Noon and the other lad off the line, in between the spaces, get them playing little ones round the box, and really give Wolves a problem, because Wolves were like 6'3", 6'4", right across their back line. You know, big, strong, solid, athletic defence. And it's the intricacy then which unlocks those people, because they're quite happy to challenge Kenwyn all day. Once the goal went in, Cardiff kind of played into Wolves' hands, and Wolves were a bit cruise control-ish, if I'm totally honest. But defensively, far more solid Cardiff were. They looked better defensively, and I always say that's where you start. You start defence and you work your way forward.
The goals being conceded have started to dry up.
Well, exactly.
I know they were playing the likes of Bournemouth and all that, but the days of 5 goals and 4 goals and all that, hopefully.
And I said a couple of weeks ago about Paul Trollope. You know, I'm not sure in the trenches, because I've never had to go in the trenches with Paul, and he never struck me as that kind of person who would, you know, want to be in the trench. I'm not saying he wouldn't go in the trenches. I'm just not wasn't sure whether he was the type of person, but seeing the results, seeing how they're better set up defensively, and hearing him, Saturday I was in the stand. I could hear him from the touchline. So, you know, I think he deserves a bit of credit for the last 3 or 4 games, how the results or the goals then against have dried up. You know, and that's what I was saying before with Youngie, Scott. Like I said, Youngie's a good lad, and I've got a lot of time for Youngie. But if you can't do the job, because it's not as easy as just walking in off the street and saying, well, I'm going to be, you know, assistant to the manager and the head coach then of the first team in the championship. It's a big deal. You're one step away from the Holy Grail. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just saying, you want someone either experienced or that can do the job. And I never really believed that Scotty was that person who was going to get that job done. So,
and Slade probably deserves a bit of credit for bringing Trollope in.
Yeah.
Because Trollope's getting a lot of credit. It's almost being used as a bit of a stick to beat Slade with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
At times, but as he said the other day, he doesn't care if the cleaner gets the credit. I think was the great quote from him. So he deserves a bit of, you know, not showing any ego there.
I think so. I mean, because he's, you know, obviously he's had a very, very rough time, you know, before this period. People, as we say, people had questioned his appointment, and then suddenly after that reasonably good, you know, really good start at home, everything dried up. And straight away the vultures were on him, weren't they? Really, they were saying, "What did I tell you? He is too big for him. He couldn't." I was his number one fan. Russ, watch some past shows, you'll see this. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, it's easy now to say Trollope this and Trollope that, but I mean, yes, credit has to go to Slade in a way. I mean, as you say, there's nothing spectacular about it. They're looking like a kind of great. They're looking like a mid-table side all of a sudden, but he has steadied the ship. And one thing I'll say about Slade, he seems to be, he's doing it in his method. You know, he's bringing his guys in. The team is transforming into his side.
I don't think the team is transforming for the better. That is my only worry. I don't think Cardiff. I think. Listen, I'm not saying player for player on paper. It's clear the players aren't as big named and as high quality.
Well, this is this cost-cutting thing, isn't it? And
but my only thing is, I think the players bringing in is not as good, but that's not meaning to say that as a team you won't be better.
Well, yeah,
Do you understand
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So
you
collectively as a
take a look at
team-
Bournemouth's side,
Yeah.
just as an example.
Yeah.
I think I said before, I remember when I was at the Bournemouth game away, I was going, God, I remember him, wasn't he at
Because
Preston?
on paper, we
Wasn't
were
he
looking at
so-and-so?
Cardiff,
Yeah.
weren't we?
Yeah,
Saying,
we're thinking,
what
well,
a
hang
squad.
on. Yeah.
What a squad.
But then Bournemouth, like that. So, I mean, what's to say, let's look on a positive light, that Russell Slade moving forward now, we've also just said he steadied them defensively, they're looking a little bit better sometimes going forward. What's to say now, looking to the future, I don't know, a strong finish, a good strong finish to this season, the summer then to take the next step in that evolution.
More players.
Yeah, so out and everything. What's to say maybe then you're looking at next season, the Championship, and there's not the big names there that we've had, or whatever, or the standout players. But suddenly under Slade and with the aid of Trollope, there's a unity to them, and they start to perform, as a whole, better than the sum of its parts. That's what we need to hope, because times have changed at Cardiff, haven't they? There's not the money being lavished around anymore. There's not the big wages there to attract the
174
big
million.
names.
Can't keep doing it. Can't keep doing it. But we've said on the show how many times they're probably paying £10 million a year out in wages that they had no need to.
Well, that's
they
what
probably
they've
had
been
at
trying
least
to
10
cut.
players that they should never be on the books. Not as an individual name, but as a squad. You don't need 30 plus players. You know what I mean? 22 to 25, not even 25. I'd say probably 20 to 22, plus then the addition of your under 21s, which you should have about 10 of. That's a brilliant squad.
It had to be done anyway for the financial fair play rules as well, apparently. So,
Was there anything surprising about those accounts? Obviously, the accounts have come out since we last. About 174 million debt, 45 million pounds spent on players.
I still don't.
46.7 million on wages during that
I still
period.
don't
2 million
see-
apparently it costs to replace Mackay with Solskjaer, and 5.1 million on the disposal of player registrations.
God, that Bergstaller. He drives a hard bargain, doesn't he?
Is that obviously agents' fees then?
Well, paying that contract, I suppose, is it, and things like that.
Yeah, it'll all be in there,
I think
won't
the
it?
figure that shocked me was they made a 12 million loss
In the Premier League.
Premier League season. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not wrong here.
You're not an accountant, but-
I'm not an accountant, but isn't it usually the other way around when you go up to the Premier League? Don't you suddenly find that you've had a big,
Well, I know QPR released figures today. They've had a 9.6 million loss, and I think that's a massive improvement on their figures from
But that
last
would
year.
be, but that wouldn't be. They're in the Premier. That would have been the season before. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
so
they,
I
they've
think,
gone
listen,
up there
I
and
think,
all
I
that
think
since,
most
so-
clubs need to cut their cloth accordingly. Do you understand what I mean? What's happening is the Holy Grail is leading to this drive of fans, because if they're successful, we want to be successful. And the range now seems to be a rich owner. If he's a millionaire, billionaire, sky's the limit. Manchester City and Chelsea have taken the roof off things, do you know what I mean? So everyone's expecting, if you've got a billionaire owner, that's guarantees your success. Let's say, well, look at us as an example. Look at Aston Villa as another example. Money doesn't mean success, and that's, to come full circle. If you go back to Russell Slade signing lesser players, I think collectively, I'm not saying they will, but they may be better because they're less ego, less expectation, as in we think we're Premier League or we should be Premier League or we've been in the Premier League. There's more of a hunger, more of a drive, a desire to get there. Do you know what I mean?
we're back. Like, what would I say, 3-4 seasons ago? Do you remember, say, under
When
Dave
Mackay took
Jones,
over.
or when Mackay took over? As in, I would look at next season, we're going to be one of the hopefuls. You know what I mean? Like, can we get a playoff play? With a fair win behind us, and as we say,
Because
Slade
Mackay's side
getting his-
wasn't a side built, you thought that's going to run away with the championship. But if you look at the championship this season, no one wants to win it. Derby, Middlesbrough,
Look at
Forest.
Norwich.
Look at
what
Norwich. Look
have
where they
done.
were. Look
Exactly.
where they were. They were below us at
we
one
sat
stage.
here going, well,
Yeah.
none of the teams that came down
Yeah.
have done anything.
Yeah,
We're all-
but-
and suddenly Norwich are just bang.
Well, let's say you get through January, February, and I remember when we won the title at Cardiff. end of January, I think end of December, we were something like 12th. End of January, February, we were up there in the top 3 or 4. So it's all about belief and confidence, picking up those results. You know, Norwich have done superb, but Ipswich have now dropped down. Middlesbrough, they lost, they dropped. Derby, you know, Sheffield Wednesday won, they've gone up.
Bournemouth are starting
Notts Forest,
to falter.
look at Notts Forest, they're now on a run for the playoffs now. Do you know what I mean? So, you know,
Vincent Tan reckons we can still make the playoffs, doesn't he? So we're, you know.
Well, it's not impossible. Listen, it's not impossible. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible.
Hang on, this show's veering way too optimistic now. Well, what you got in there?
You made it.
Jameson. Nice.
Let's talk about Vincent Tan. Obviously, made his long-awaited big return to.
He knows how
Cardiff.
to get a crowd going.
Yeah, well,
Vincent
9
Tan,
months he was away for, wasn't he? Back on the weekend.
His mum probably told him to
Some
come.
interesting sights and sounds. We've got a bit of a clip, I think, of him meeting fans. Maybe we can talk over it as we see it. Lots of autographs signed, a couple of Ayatollahs thrown in there, and all the rest.
If I was there getting the autographs, I'd have a bit of paper that said, "I agree to turn my debt into equity." And I'd say, "Vincent, could you just sign this for me, please?" And
stick your name on there. Yeah, that seems just speaking to Peter Whittingham. He asked him to score a hat-trick before the game. He then got sent off, so that didn't work out.
So that's the end of him.
That's kind of like the thinking behind our club.
There's quite a good exchange.
Go up and ask him to score a hat-trick, so it means he will. That's kind of like some of that line there. I know I'm jumping on it, but that kind of sums up the thinking behind the football.
I think it was a joke, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he was in general jovial mood, or it was clear. I mean, Terry was down there when he was there, and he addressed the players, and he was actively telling them to sort of employ a shoot-on-sight policy.
He was only joking the wits. He said, "Score a hat-trick," and then his henchman actually lifted it back over the balcony. So it was just a joke, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I like about Tan is everyone saying thank you, congratulations, for changing something that he shouldn't have done in the first place. That's a bit like people coming up to me and saying and thanking me for not punching them in the face. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, thank you for not, like, you know, beating me up. You know, that's really kind of you. So there's a
particularly subtle scene he was giving it all out.
I think this is going to sound bad. I think he looks better in red. I don't know. It just looks weird him in blue. I tell you what, that blue kit does is that badge.
Makes it look.
It sort of was all right on the red kit, but on the blue kit, your eye is drawn. I'm no fashion. This ain't the clothes show. Is it? I mean, look at us.
I think suggestions could well be news on a new badge this week.
I've heard that. I've heard there's going to be a new badge coming soon to make everybody even more annoyed. To make everybody happy and delighted. I haven't seen the badge myself.
On Tell Me, that all went rather smoothly. From there wasn't any great unrest. It was polite.
No fans there, that's why.
Warmish welcome.
There's an air of resignation around the place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
This season now is just seeing things out. But I mean, you link him with the accounts and the debt and all that, and you look at Vincent Tan, and I still say, you know, personally, for all the changing of the kit, for all the anger and the rebrand and all that, his decision not to turn the debt to equity into shares, and to me that still remains the most contentious decision that we were told when the rebrand was going through. Look, you know, I mean, the phrase "debt-free club" was used. I remember it because it for a guy who'd been going down for 20 years and hasn't even got 50 pence for the meter. For a long-term Cardiff fan, the phrase "debt-free club" is a very attractive. It's like it's as attractive as a supermodel waiting outside to take you to dinner. You know, it's on that level of niceness.
Great parallel.
You know, it is, isn't it? It's, to a hub, it's like ding, debt-free club. I remember that phrase being used, and the fact that we are where we are now and everything we've been through, and that still hasn't happened. Although, in fairness, I mean, when I spoke to Mehmet Dalman chairman recently, he did say it would happen, but the time was not right now. We don't know what the conditions are, but, you know, we'll have to see. But I still say, for all the things that have happened, that is the bit for me personally that concerns me and annoys me still. That hasn't, despite, you know, going through all that.
I think the point of, I think going through it all that was said to be one of the major reasons.
Well, it was why many of us, like I know I'm known as some kind of red cheerleader, was kind of like, well, all right, you know, if it's going to safeguard the club forever, kind of.
You kind of back to where you were with Sam Man, didn't you? But in a far worse state.
Yeah, well, people have.
deeper
I mean,
depth.
people sometimes. People have short memories. Do you remember the transfer embargoes under Ridsdale and all that? You know,
yeah,
it was like
nightmare.
it was like, oh, the tax man hasn't been paid, and all the golden, you know.
It's a
and
lot of
every
money,
time
mate.
you went
It's a lot of
near it-
money. It's
I
a
mean,
lot of
and
money.
I thought we were going through that horrible thing to come out the other side and say, well, at least money-wise,
Yeah, we're great.
but we're not. We're still with this debt. I know it's all to one guy, basically to one guy now, but it's still there, and that's disappointing. But life is disappointing.
Life can
in
often
many
be
ways. I don't want to get
disappointing.
too philosophical, but
Here's
you
a
know.
question, and to move things on from Joey: Is Peter Whittingham's suspension a blessing in disguise?
Oh, I knew someone was. Didn't you? I knew
that
someone was
would
going
come
to. Yeah, I
out.
did.
Yeah, I did.
I woke
yeah.
up and I thought someone's going to ask, is Peter Whittingham's suspension?
I
and,
think
and as part of that point, who should replace him? There's 4 or 5 sort of candidates, aren't there?
There are various.
Can you name me 3, 4?
Adeyemi,
Adeyemi.
Rowles, Makaleni sort of play,
Yeah.
depending on what they were.
Who was supposed to be when he
O'Keefe.
debuted?
O'Keefe coming.
O'Keefe would come in, but then you've got Gunnarsson and O'Keefe, which is like.
You've got no
Not very sexy.
creativity.
No, it's not sexy. So it's like having.
Well, you've
two
got
battering
you've
rams.
not got a creative midfielder at the club, really. I don't know about well.
Adeyemi, he's
He's not a creative player. Adeyemi's a box-to-box tackler. He's a great athlete. I don't think he's the type of player who's going to get on it and spray it around, or little ones round the corner and open up. Do you know what you could do with what was his name under Dave Jones? I used to love him. Fans used to.
McPhail.
That's what you need right now. That's the type of player. 2 runners who can run. Steve McPhail, someone's just going to sit and tick, 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 tick. Ball constantly moving, players constantly thinking, little runs and stuff like that. Because what often happens as a player, you stop making runs if you don't feel the ball's going to come. So Cardiff have really got to work on their offensive side of the game over the summer for me, and come back in pre-season showing a lot more than they've done this season. But they is it to answer the question, is it a blessing in disguise? I don't think it's a blessing in disguise. I think what it does is gives the manager an opportunity.
Exactly. It's one of those.
That's what it does.
It
And you'll
could
see
be.
whether the manager is thinking Peter Whittingham short term or long term. Because if he's out and stays out now, then obviously, writing's kind of on the wall. But if he's out for 3 games or 1 game?
It's only
Just
one
one
game.
game,
Two
yeah.
yellows.
Yeah, so he's out for 1 game and then is back in straight after, then he would.
He's played every minute of every game apart from the minutes that he missed in the last game when he got sent off.
It could be a blessing in disguise, I think, in the sense of, I'm pretty sure, Russell Slade, like
I
a lot of
think
people,
3 games would have been.
has looked at it, has been toying with that. Is it too big a step? The decision's been taken out of his hands now. He's out. So he's got to now think, oh, right, I'm sure he had ideas of how he would, if he did drop him, how he would replace him. And now he's forced to put that into operation. It's just the kind of thing that might...
Yeah, but he might have been-
stick Rolls in there or someone, and suddenly it might, oh, hang on.
He
yeah,
might have
that's
been
sort of
thinking.
working.
He might have been thinking. I don't care what everyone says. He's the player I want in midfield.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
But it gives him
Because
an
there hasn't been-
excuse to
yeah, but
experiment.
he's let's be fair. Russell Slade's cut plenty of players, like he said, I need to clear out. And so if you were going to clear out and you were going to change things around, I know like the fan unrest against Wits and Gunnar being playing week in, week out has been growing and growing, but the manager shouldn't take his decision on fans unrest. You take your decision on what you see. You know what I mean? And for me, like O'Keefe, terrific little player, but you had Adeyemi who could do that job. I think you needed a creative midfielder, definitely a creative midfielder, because those teams at the top, your Derbys, your Middlesbroughs, your Watfords, they all got very creative central midfield. I don't think, I've said it for a while, I just don't think we get enough through our midfield.
Yeah.
Because you look at the replacements to come in, and as you say, there's nothing really, Rowles, Adeyemi.
And Joey is saying, I want to see Gunnarsson, O'Keefe and Adeyemi or Rowles. Another one down here saying Mike saying Joe Rowles must be the man to replace Wits, good all-round midfielder, always willing to shoot, which would please Mr. Tan, and too often played out of position. He does seem to
Left back, left
He's
wing.
always
Yeah,
out,
he
yeah.
does, yeah.
Never
Could
really
be.
see him have a prolonged...
Yeah.
Could be the moment. As you said, but as Blakey says, it's one game at Rotherham, you know, so it's not, you're going to have to be a hell of a sudden transformation, you know, that's going to go, wow, yes, that works, keep that now, with no further evidence, you know, that'll do, which is probably unlikely.
Let's talk about goals then as part of the team selection and moving forward. An issue. Why can't Cardiff score goals? 3 goals in their last 7 matches. To be fair, at the other end, they've only conceded 3 in their last 5.
You go through that sometimes.
But well, just looking at their, you know, they don't create many chances. Looking at their top scorers, Kenwyn Jones, by far and away the leading goal scorer, 13 goals, I think. And then the next person on the list is Sean Morrison.
4 goals.
Well, that's the classic Whittingham corner, Morrison
with 5 goals. Whittingham there with 5. And then you sort of your Gunnarsons and your Gunnarsons
and 2s and 3s.
Gunnarsson with 3s, and then you're down to 2s. Yeah, I could even see Guido Bergstaller comes onto this list because he got 1 goal in the League Cup.
If only we hadn't spent that 5 million getting
Well,
rid of him
you go through that sometimes, you know, I think both offensively and defensively, but I think with Cardiff at the moment, you've been going through it for a long time. Do you know what I mean? And
it's not
a blip. It is a problem with where you're playing at the moment.
Touched on it with that creative midfielder thing.
Correct.
Well, Steve's saying we should have kept hold of Ikram or Kimbo. Either would have been a straight good replacement for Whittingham. And it just
It doesn't mention the words Matt.
Wasn't Kim like by far and away Wigan's best player in that match? I don't know if you guys are up there, but
more than likely, you know, in Cardiff, so probably get a 10 million move to the Premier League.
I mean, my point is, if you're going to get rid of creative players, you got to bring a creative player in. Yeah, you can't just be, even next year, you know, if Russell Slade is thinking we're just going to be good and hard working, you know, it's not, because, you know, you look at the promotion season and the Mackay, you know, Whittingham, he dipped towards the end of the season. Do you know what I mean?
They brought Much in there.
Much in, who was quality. Noonan, who was quality.
Good. You had Kim played a big part.
Kimbo, quality. Good. You had a lot of creative players. Do you know what I mean? Who towards the end of the season really took off and probably got us over the line in big games. You know, that little bit of something special, a little bit of magic.
No,
so
they don't create any
my
chances.
worry is for Russell Slade is that you're not looking at that as something you're going to bring in. It's okay being hard working, pressing and what have you, but the Championship, listen, you know, if you get relegated from the Premier League, you go to the Championship, there's Premiership quality in the Championship. So if you think you're going to get away with it as being like a League One type hard working and like Bradford, someone like no disrespect, but they're hard work and they overrun teams. You know what I mean? With that's not going to happen in the Championship, mate. It's not going to happen. You'll get so far hard working. You hit about October, November. As soon as winter kicks in, you need those little diamonds who are going to make the difference.
Cardiff don't have them.
Well, they got rid of them, didn't they?
Those two have as well. And
John
like
just pointing out that Kimbo scored 2 for Wigan on the weekend.
He did, yeah.
A rare victory at Blackpool.
He did.
That's it.
I'd have him up there with Rudy Gusted just ahead of him.
That'd be nice. Yeah, go back. A couple of comments on all that then. On that issue, Carl saying style of play is the biggest factor we set up to defend from the off, and while that's paid off in terms of improved clean sheets and things like that, which certainly has, we just haven't got it going forward. He basically says it's all about possession, says John. That's what it's all to do with. We don't have enough possession. Okay, being solid at the back, but if you don't have the ball, you cannot score, which is a point we've touched on. What do you make of Owen Doyle so far from what we've seen of him? A couple of people saying, a bit like they used to say about Lafondra, who impressive.
He's just standing to do that. Saturday, the first time I looked at him, I thought to myself, in 2 or 3 games, he wasn't as threatening then as he has been. He'd been really threatening without scoring, but Saturday he just dipped off it. Do you know what I mean? He was just off it a bit, and and to be fair, I felt Kenwyn was poor as well on the weekend. You know,
Kenwyn would have scored, but
I think the problem it was a great, that and a great header he had. He should have scored with. But I'm talking like general play. He wasn't great on Saturday. Yeah. He looked tired on Saturday. He looked really tired. But 2 opportunities to score. Was unfortunate with one, should have scored with the other. But both of them, you know, the partnership didn't look as threatening as it had been in.
Do you think he'll change that for tomorrow? Quick turnaround of games.
I would say
Ravel
Rotherham,
going back to his own
Ravel
probably.
back against his old
Probably
club.
quite easy to read. Isn't it?
Emotional return to
Yeah, very.
Needs a goal as well.
Everyone gets
Needs a
emotional
goal.
when they have to return to Rotherham.
Yeah.
You can't help the tears.
no. Rotherham Premier in tomorrow night, won't you? Is that?
Oh yeah. If anybody's at the Rotherham Premier in,
He didn't mean it.
Get me a pint, for God's sake, or 10. But, looking forward to that. But I think the lack of goals is a general lack of creativity across the whole side. It's not a blip. It's been there all season. How many times have we sat here and gone? Every time I see it, there's the one thing that's got me like anyone would notice is a lack of width. They never seem to get down the flanks and get any service in. It's always their idea of attack. If it's not a set piece, no wonder Morrison scored so many goals, because he's on the end of every bit of like corner or whatever. He did the same against Wolves. He had a couple of, he should have scored possibly again there. It's always get to the final third, chipped ball up the middle, looking for Kenwyn to knock it down and something to happen. Well, I'm not going to say, they have tightened up at the back, and that's all that. Maybe the next piece of the jigsaw now is that moving forward. Is that?
You could clearly see it was evident. Anyone who was there Saturday, it was evident that Wolves play certain patterns of play. Yeah, Saka was very good. It came off the line so many times. Got in those little pockets. Created problems for Cardiff. Massive problems at times, and I felt that's what Cardiff don't do. They don't move around. They're very rigid, But the wingers haven't got the pace to get down the outside of people. Like I've said, if they're going to play the way they're playing, the 2 wide men need to be runners. They need to be able to beat people on the outside. Now Noon can,
But hasn't been.
but has struggled a bit since he's come back off injury. Like I say, when the side's not confident, then it's easier for your confidence to lapse than it is for you to drag everyone else up. So he's come off the boil a bit, which happens. You're not going to be on it all the time. And you've not got any other winger apart from Harris, who seems to have now been pushed aside again with any sort of raw pace. Now, the players I've brought in, I would rather see you go down into League 2, League 1 and pick a couple of flying wingers.
I think.
Do you know what I mean? And work with them on their technical.
Pilkington's injury. I think.
Yeah.
He's not a flyer or whatever, but I thought.
He's a good winger though.
It's been a long road back. That
it has. I think he's been a big miss for them.
Yeah,
I think his last game was, Watford away. In like December.
You always tend to miss those players that are injured more when they're injured.
Yes, when you're playing when you're not playing very well. But I do think, because I remember right at the time thinking, he's starting to establish himself.
I've always liked him. I said that.
But he's had a setback. But he should be near fitness. But yeah, I think you're right there, Blake. You when you're kind of thinking, God, I'm really missing Anthony Pilkington. You're kind of clutching at straws.
One of the reasons he got released by Norwich was because of injury.
Exactly.
That's the only.
Well, he was back and then broke down in training. So I don't never words that you like to hear.
No,
but
always troublesome.
Yeah, it's always a bad thing. But I don't know. It just hasn't been good enough going forward all season, has it? That's it. Whoever's been involved and whoever's being brought in, and wherever way there's been 2 up there or 1 up top, it's never fired correctly, and that's something to be looked at.
The flip side of that, perhaps being the defence, which we talked about, seems to be in big improvement. Seems settled now. Manga's
quality on the
weekend.
weekend.
He made it was partly at fault for the goal on the weekend, wasn't he? But generally, has he been so good that you'd be very surprised if he's still at Cardiff next season?
But that's the thing, isn't it? The clack.
Yeah, and Marshall as well. Because since he's come back in, we've looked,
It's difficult to get to the bottom of Marshall. Because every transfer window there's speculation, but it never seems to get that firm, does it? Which is surprising. But
I'd be amazed if they finish wherever they're going to finish, and in the summer, if someone came in from, I'd be amazed. I mean, he's been very loyal. He likes Cardiff, I think.
Yeah.
I think the other part is with most players, if they're not guaranteed, especially keepers, you can't guarantee a number 1 spot.
That's the problem, I suppose. If you were to go somewhere,
I think for a long time here, he wasn't number 1. Him and Heaton battled it out, you know what I mean? He got it in the end.
Yeah, it's a big thing for a keeper. It's not much. I'm thinking of Michel Vaughan, who obviously left Swansea, was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah,
Hasn't played apart
nightmare.
from me in the cup, and then ditched
Didn't
for the final.
final, yeah.
Marshall's
gotcha.
turning into kind of like Whittingham figure in that way. You know, in the way that Whittingham had the chance when he was the best player outside the Premier League all those years ago, where he could have moved and. I mean, I remember talking to him about it, and he said that the grass isn't always greener. I think he had that fear of being small fish in a big pot. I know it's not good, but I mean, you know, at Cardiff, he was at that point, and he was first name on the team sheet. He was this, he was that. I think he was happy, and you always go in.
Standard individual, I think.
But I imagine Marshall's very similar in that, and that he's the number one all the way, and. He likes the area and all this kind of thing. You know, he's happy with, obviously, he has an improved deal. He's signed extensions. And if he does go to a Premier League side, probably usually your first port of call is ousting someone who's already there. He doesn't always go to plan, as Vaughan at Spurs.
I mean, what about the rest of that back four? Obviously, there's been a couple of changes, but Peltier, he sort of seems a regular fixture. Have you been impressed with him?
I quite like him, yeah. He's a little aggressive little player as well, and he gets wide in, and he seems to love defending more than he loves going forward. Because if you look how we play now, the two fullbacks aren't going on. Connolly on the weekend and Peltier, they just basically sat. It's just a back four. They're not, you know. Prior to that, it was, go back 2 months. Cardiff's both fullbacks, both pushing on. You know, going to that European kind of style, which I believe is coming thick and fast into the British game. But
I mean, I thought Scott Malone's comments, I know he's injured now, but I mean his comments, I was reading his comments saying the gaffer we wanted to work on my defending. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Which is straight. He is a fullback, but you know, it seems Slade was very much like saying, no, wants that there.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
sit in there.
Well, you've got to start there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, if you're trying to stop the wheels in motion going backwards, I say you know things might get worse before they get better, but you literally got a solid back four, and whether you've got 3 or 4 or 5 in front of you, that's got to be solid as well.
Well, I think Slade had been through that period where they were shipping all those goals and was thinking, whoa, the first thing we got to do is stop the dam bursting, you know, is sure.
Because I'm saying Connolly, I think he's had a really raw deal at Cardiff. I think he's been one of our best defenders whenever he plays. He's just Mr. Consistent. You never see him moaning because he's got to play full-back. He's a very good centre-half. You know, I think if he had been given time to develop into centre half, he would have been a good, you know, captain after Hudson. But played right back largely when he's filled in at left back even. You know, you never think, oh, you know, Connolly's had a stink of the day and someone's, you know, absolutely running ragged. You just don't, do you? He's just a steady Eddie. Will score his fair share of goals from set pieces. You know, I think he's one of our underrated. In my book, he's what we would call as a player's player.
He's always been
really
slightly
appreciated in the dressing room.
He's always been slightly unlucky in that someone's come in and he's
been the fall guy, which I never understood. He always seems to start
the season for some reason as well, and then they sign someone in the transfer window, and he's sort of relegated to the bench, and he pops back about November.
Well, let's be fair. He's been messed about to come back in and play the way he's playing.
Oh, his attitude is absolutely exceptional.
That's it. That's what I'm
his
saying.
Attitude
I
is
really like him. I think he's a
I know he's got admirers within the club. I mean, I remember speaking actually to Mehmet Dalman. We were talking about some things, and we were talking about players, and he said, "Oh, Connolly's a player." You know, I know it's not his decision, but the chairman said, "I think he's quite an unlucky player. I always like watching him play and all that." You know, so he does have his admirers within the club. It's just the problem is for him. I think it's not always the manager himself who's probably the most important.
I would say out there the back four that started on the weekend. Or back five, if Marshall goes and Manga went, I'd move him into the centre and he'd become my captain, you see, Connolly.
Do you think he's captain material? He always strikes me as a little bit like laid back, almost like Witzkai, you know, that sort of like quite understated kind of, nothing phases him.
He put his foot in, he'll head anything.
No, he's not. I'm not saying he's not brave. I just mean he's motivated.
I've seen him a couple of times lose it with players. I've seen.
When I think of a centre half captain, I think of Percy or Huds in a way. That kind of like, come on. Get, you know,
No, I think
well, maybe I'm doing a disservice. I don't know. I think you are.
I think you're doing him a disservice.
Okay.
Because you kind of fall into the trap that a lot of people fall into. That's what happens when you're underappreciated. No, really.
It's like me on here, underappreciated.
Yeah.
Very underappreciated.
Always underappreciated.
I am. I feel it. And now he's running off.
What do we?
I didn't say that.
What do we think about Rotherham then? I mean, it's probably the least glamorous fixture on paper, isn't it?
I think the Rotherham Premier Inn.
Of course, the reverse fixture, that was a dull affair. That 0-0, wasn't it, at Cardiff City Stadium back in December?
They did. That was probably one of the most boring. Although there's a lot of competition this season for boring games, but that in particular, that was the day we got a glimpse of Alex Ravel and thought, God, I really hope we sign him later in the season. That's when the whole stadium. That's when no one in the stadium thought that, apart from Russell Slade. I really hope we get. No, it was a dull affair. So I mean, but they've just had a good. Obviously, they're looking over their shoulders. Obviously, their need is greater than Cardiff's, really. But they've just had a very good win at home to Millwall, and I can see Steve Evans saying they want to follow that up now with Cardiff.
It was a vital win for them at the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're now 6 points.
It was a big.
They've had a few good wins lately, mind.
They're 4 points behind
Cardiff. Yeah.
Oh, crikey! Yeah, I mean they're not like.
You're very much of the opinion that Cardiff. We're not talking about relegation battles potentially.
Blackpool gone.
It's there.
Wigan gone.
It's there. You can never say never. Obviously, it's there. But with each passing game, not just our results, but those below us, it's not drifting closer. We're not now. What were we 6 points away from it? 5-6 points away from it, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, now 10.
Yeah, we're now 10. So it's not like we're not sleepwalking into it. Then we seem to be. We seem to have woken up a little, and we are, along with the results below, like Rotherham beating Millwall. That was a massive result. Us beating Wigan, that was a massive result. So you just, like a person said, driftwood, just going a bit further away each time. So I'm not saying
it's going to be a bit dull, isn't it, the next couple of
Let's
months?
put it this way: it's boring.
Listen, it's never dull at Cardiff. You know that.
Blakey,
But you don't like those middle.
relegation.
You don't like those. You don't like those middle table finishes.
Well, no, they're 19 points off the playoffs, so that's completely.
Listen, playoffs is gone.
Hey, if Vincent Tan says we can do it,
I'm
then
not
I'll
sure
go.
he did.
Didn't he? Or sorry, did I see it misreported? I thought
think there's conflicting things from Tan because he bet Mehmet Dalman. He told Mehmet Dalman if they get promoted, then he's betting that he has to streak naked across the pitch.
Crikey! If they do get promoted,
Which
remind me
suggests
not-
neither man
no
thinks
offence.
it's particularly likely.
Exactly. I was going to say. So we're not.
Blakey, do only a famous if they get promoted, I'll go skydiving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if Cardiff get promoted, surely you can go.
What were you meant to go skydiving for? What was that?
What
If they stayed up
happens?
or something? Was it or no?
If they stayed at the Premier League, yeah.
Well, they were,
Was it?
God, I wish they'd stayed up. At least it wasn't streaking naked across. I'd rather watch you skydiving.
Probably
Was
a
it
few pe-
skydiving naked?
There's probably a few people who would like to see that, mate.
Don't count me about.
You being one, posters on the wall and
I
all
was going
that.
to say, if you do go naked skydiving, be careful when you pull your parachute. For goodness sake, don't
Wait a
want
minute, I won't get Alex.
don't want any problems. You have to bring tears to your eyes, as they say. But, no, it's turning into a bit of a kind of, well, I would say turning into, it's been a boring season, hasn't it, in a way, and it's starting to end in that.
It's been a
physical-
No,
It just
it's
feels
not
like
been
it's-
boring, it's been tiring.
Feels like it's on the fizzle now, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It hasn't been any.
Yeah. Well, it's a season that people would rather forget about and put behind them, and mostly because one, the football has been poor. It's been crazy.
There's been some awful stuff.
Transitions, 2 or 3 transitions in the last 2 years. All the nonsense with the kit and the badge. You know, what Tux mentioned earlier, the size of the debt. You know what I mean, over the club. There's just, really and truly just.
What's
and
the-
I think what
Apart from that, it's been great.
Vincent Tan coming Saturday. I think, listen, without those Wolves fans, who, by the way, one of them to you, they were superb on the weekend.
A lot of them.
They were, and it was 2,500. They filled. Without them, the stadium would have been very, very quiet, and would have looked a lot worse than what it did. Because I sat down, and the first thing I said to Pabs was, there's a lot of empty seats in there. You know, when you sit down and actually look at the blue seat, there's a lot of empty seats, mate. There's a lot of empty seats. So the worry is, if the decisions you've made recently, too little, too late, whether you've already alienated a large section of your fans. And I always said, the biggest worry for me was, with the kit change, was you're thinking you're going to get more business overseas. But if you know football fans, they don't change their club colours. Simple as that, they don't change their club. But my biggest fear was you're going to alienate your home fans so bad that you're going to lose a lot of them. And it's almost, that's what's happened. I think a lot of fans are just fed up with what's gone on over the last 2 years at the club. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, they did, when you look and say, well, I didn't enjoy the Premier League season, you then start to think to yourself, well, what are we going for?
What was it all about? Yeah. What was the point in it?
What is the
all
point?
The pain.
Why am I putting myself through this? Why am I paying for a season
Well, that's
ticket?
it's like I said earlier.
So
They're going to run out next season. It'll be like running out in the 2011-12 season. They're going to be like, you know, the bookie. You know, it'll start with the bookies. Although what the hell do the bookies know, because they were favourites this time around. But you know, they'll be like seventh,
Top six,
yeah,
seven,
yeah, they'll be so seventh. You know, can they make? It'll be that. Can they? You know, it's like a bit like under Dave Jones. You know, can they make? It's going to be like that. It's going to be. You know, everything will be rationalised, and it'll be back to that. You know, if they have a good win behind them, a good season, if Russell.
And I don't.
gets his
I don't.
You know, I don't.
I don't disagree with the.
No, I got a massive
the
problem
rationale.
with it. No.
I don't disagree with it.
It's just
I'm saying that's why that's what they should have done first and foremost. Do you know what I mean?
The problem is though, Blakey, if we was doing that, looking back, saying, at least we had a great time in the Prem.
Yeah.
You know, it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, remember? I mean, not they were, but on the whole, you look back on
It
it.
was a
You're
fight,
back where you
wasn't it?
started again, and you've got nothing but bitter memories to think back on. And as you say, alienation. People who are still like, doesn't feel like my
Bothered.
club. I can't.
Yeah.
And you come out the other side, and you haven't even got those sort of like, well, you know, at least we gave it a go. You know, and that's disappointing.
And I don't think we're back to blue has had what Vincent Tan. I think he's totally underestimated the football fan, especially at Cardiff. I think he felt, go back to blue, there'll be 25,000 in the stadium every week, because that's basically the problem.
Kind of like that one day of celebration, and then it's just kind of as you will.
Can hardly remember the celebration. Quite nice to see all the
You know the
retro
old saying
kits like
when
that,
it says,
though.
Good retro
I
kit.
love it.
Favourite Cardiff City kit?
I like the
Early
red
90s,
one,
Wales
the red
Echo?
one from last season.
Favourite Cardiff City kit.
Don't you reckon, Blakey?
There you are, by there.
Oh, mate, that hair.
Yeah, that one was a
How
bit
much
dodgy.
gel have you got on that hair? If anyone lit a match near you, you end up like a Roman candle gun. Don't bring a naked flame within 5 feet of Nathan Blake's head for fear of...
It wasn't actually gel.
Oh, wasn't it? What is...
It's like grease.
It's actual
Grease lightning.
Yeah, like ultra sheen.
Yeah,
That's what the brothers use, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I
I
wouldn't
think
know what that-
the standout favourite is that 70s one, though, isn't it? The old
I,
Robin Friday.
see, hey, I like the red one from last year. That's my favourite retro kit.
Or the white one from this year.
The right,
It's another favourite.
big shout out if anyone turned up in the white one from it's
No, my favourite was the big one with the big South Wales Echo thing there that you couldn't miss.
What people don't know is the static electricity that could be picked up from Blakey's shirt there could power Cardiff for 48 hours.
They did think
Just
you
had to
did,
link
they
you in,
did, they did.
hook you up to the national
I
grid.
can't even remember the sponsor. It's like Abundance or something like that.
What's the little chain? Have you still got that? Was that like
What, the
you got
bracelet
those
thing?
little things where we did have Blakey on it? I had one of those when I was a kid.
Probably had.
Used to have your name engraved. Sorry if no one can see what we're looking at. It's
I
a
didn't have
picture
my
of
name on
a
it.
Yeah, didn't it?
picture of Blake. What year was that then, Blake's? Was that?
Earlier.
I don't know.
It's classic, the pattern on it though, because a lot of kits were like that then. They suddenly knew technology. We can put really horrible weird patterns on kits.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And if you've
now.
seen the tracksuit we had, sky blue and yellow. Oh,
You were lucky to have a tracksuit.
I remember walking down Scarborough and on a we used to go for a walk on a Saturday morning and York.
Well, that was a long walk to Scarborough, blimey.
I remember thinking walking down and people just like tooting their horns at us. This was the worst tracksuit I've ever seen. Like, oh God.
Boy, they looked that pathetic.
Oh, they were terrible. Oh, I tell you.
I like the
They
idea
were
of you
awful.
shamefaced on Scarborough seafront. And you're
Being silly like this. Like,
Man, mate, the classic. You got it there, Dolly, behind you. The classic kit hung up.
Yep.
The old set for me. That's the classic. Man.
Yeah,
Adrian Olsen
that was
in
by
that
far
or
the
something like
favourite
that.
in the
Peter Sayer
vote we did,
flying down the wing in one of those. To me, that's because I was a little kid. That's like, if I dream of Cardiff City in my dreams, that's how I. No offence.
That's how you see me, in
Nathan
that
Blake in that whatever one he was doing in that as well. No, I think because I was about I was about 7 or something when Cardiff were wearing that or something, and that was like
People the rage away there, Tim.
my stepdad. Brilliant.
All right, then let's finish with. We might as well finish with predictions.
It's gone quickly today.
As would be the norm.
Yeah, well, I think we're under an hour there.
We?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, he was telling people how.
yeah.
Unless you go.
Takes us 10 minutes for
anything
predictions,
else,
doesn't it?
Anything else you want to get off your chest? You know, any news?
Few grey
or-
hairs.
Predictions will be
I've seen
fine.
you. I can't talk about people being hairy, man. People,
know.
people think I'm in those gorilla suits.
No,
without
well,
the hat
when I
on,
first
you know.
met you, I thought you were a Wookiee.
Crikey, I gotta laugh. I am a little hirsute, as they say in the trade. You know. Do you what?
No.
Oh, if ever you bump into him in a bar, say to Blakey,
Don't say that.
I'll buy you a pint if you do your Wookiee.
Yeah,
If you do
say
your
that.
Chewbacca.
Do your Wookiee impression? Come on.
Do your Wookiee. No, I actually, you see, the thing is, though, you can't do it under pressure. It has to come naturally.
Yeah.
Like,
You two remind me of like kids when I was in school, and they used to say, I used to say
you
like
doing your Wookiee in school?
in metal work, and like I remember as a kid, and there's a big bin full of metal shavings and everything. Teacher said to me, Nathan, take it outside. I said, okay, so I stood his back. I went, I bet you can lift that over to that door. Right, can. That's what you two are thinking now, isn't it? Suck me in and I'm going to do it. Yeah.
All right, don't do your Chewbacca then. I don't care.
What's the matter?
Don't do your Chewbacca. I bet you can't do it very well anyway. Get that reverse psychology. He'll crack it about. I bet you're rubbish at doing Chewbacca. I bet you're rubbish. Oh, that's a definite sign we're killing time, right? Isn't it?
For real, you're not talking Star Wars.
We're calling for you. You looking forward to the news? There's a new Star Wars coming up this year.
It's just that
Oh,
prediction.
sorry, man. I can't
Yeah.
go on to Star Wars.
Lunch to be had.
So go on,
Oh,
son. Go on in. I'll let you go first.
Oh, I'm always tempted by draws every time I think of Cardiff. I always like.
Wayne says Rotherham 2, Cardiff 1. Just to
I'm going to go 1-0 Cardiff.
1-0 Cardiff.
I'm going to go 2-1 Cardiff as well. I want a bit of optimism, you know, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Well, them scoring 2 goals feels like beyond the realms of possible. But no, 2-1 to the Bluebirds and 5 pints in the Premier in Rotherham East.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
Bit of
And that's just
advertising there.
Wathen's share of them. That is, mate.
Indeed,
It's just
indeed.
Wathen's share.
Okay, good stuff, chaps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed. Live coverage. What time's kick-off tomorrow? At 7? Not the man to ask.
7:45. I've only got
45,
7:45. I would imagine.
7:45.
It might be 8 if there's rush hour in Rotherham,
Could be.
just in case Orson Cart
be.
breaks down.
Indeed.
But there's no one from Rotherham. There'll be like natives outside the Premier Inn.
Like for me, when I go Sheffield because of a certain person.
Let's not bring up that. Blakey, you're living in the past, man. Look to the future. Look to the future.
I am. I try.
Do your Chewbacca.
Thank you, chap. You can join Steve live for that game from 7:45 kick-off.
Yes.
Are you in
7:45.
Cardiff?
Tomorrow
You've
evening
got
here
son.
on,
I'm not there, son.
here on Wales Online, and we will
be
be
good.
back as long as Nathan Blake doesn't get any more new jobs next week. We'll be back same time, same place. See you then.